population base and there's more of a growing areas of the country. In New England, it's we might do 2 or 3 a year in New England. It's not very common. So because they're not so common, some of these questions are addressed, and they're very legitimate questions. The diversion of tax dollars for private development can't be controversial. These are perceptions. These aren't actual issues, but these are perceptions that you have to consider. It raises policy questions regarding the proper role of government. In New England, although I think we're all blue states, I think we're still very conservative on the property rights. We are very, very conservative on that as far as what rights property owners have versus what rights government has. The issuance of public debt for private purposes, that's a very, very, very real perception that you have to, contend with. And development in itself triggers emotional responses. You might be in a suburban or a rural area, and the people are like, we're done. We're tired of development. We're tired of waiting in traffic for 20 minutes we can't make a left turn on Main Street. We're tired of seeing all the farmland being bought up and having Walmart come in. So, it does trigger some emotional responses that you have to deal with as public officials. The next slide talks about some of the issues or steps that you can do to kind of deal with those sentiments, is to obviously establish clear goals and objectives up front as far as what you want from the tax increment issue, and have a very transparent process, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. Witnessing the first part of your meeting, things come back to public bodies for votes, things are authorized in public, that type of thing, and really seek consensus among all stakeholders, residents, local chamber of commerce's, citizens group, development communities, and in New Hampshire, the overlapping jurisdictions. You want to make sure that what you're proposing here is in line with your regional partners in economic development, the county government, and so on. And to be realistic in your financing plan. There is a wonderful website called cdfa.net that has all of this and about 1,000 more presentations about everything you wanted about tax increment financing and economic development finance. I put it up there. It's a great resource. I know Andre has this. This is sort of the tax increment financing best practices guide. It's the Community Development Finance Network. It's a national network. They have seminars throughout the country several times a year that people can go to and learn all about economic development. And they specialize in quite a bit of information on TIFs. So that's out there for anybody to do some further research. Really, at this point, I just want to talk about some of the case studies. This, I think, will kind of, rather than talking about theory and conception, talk about 2 or 3 actual plans that have taken place. 2 in New Hampshire, 1 is in Rhode Island, and I'll just say the reason why I bring the Rhode Island one up is that I serve on a planning commission for a special development district, much like you do. We're looking to reuse some waterfront property that is underutilized, and we're addressing some of the same issues that you're facing. Whether or not, how do we entice, or do we want to entice developers into a certain area? So I'll just talk about some of the situations that myself and my colleagues on that planning board are going through. The first one is the city of Keene, Black Brook Corporate Park. This occurred back in the mid-90s. The city's master plan had a goal of increasing its industrial portion of its tax base from 10% to 20%. It's a very good public value. I think everyone would love anything less residential and more commercial and industrial. We would love that. So the city identified a actually it was an existing cornfield property. It's not a cornfield anymore, of 350 acres by Route 12 and 101 on the outskirts of Keene, western Keene. The original assessed value back in 1997, before the development took place, of the property there was about $13 million. Last year, after the improvements were made, the assessed value of the properties there was nearly $40 million, which resulted in a captured value of $27 million in assessed value growth, which is spinning off $689,000 in annual taxes. The debt service on the bonds that were required to bring that development to fruition is only $320,000. So this is a perfect example how the values there more than doubled and allowed the city to capture or share some of that increment, not only just to pay for the bonded debt service, but to spin off some money back to the town. back to the city. The specifics of the project talk. The city first identified one single facility to build a medical manufacturing facility within that district. They signed a development agreement where the city would agree to $4 million in public improvements for roads, sewer, and water, and land acquisition. The company guaranteed to construct a new facility and make a minimum investment of $9 million in the park and remain a taxable entity. That's obviously very important, because if it was taken over by not-for-profit or something like that, then they don't pay taxes, and then the whole deal kind of goes down the drain. And also, during the construction of the project, the company posted a security bond to until the $9 million was verified and the building, in fact, was complete and put on the tax rolls. That basically led, that one additional development led to the creation of the whole corporate park, where additional park tenants now include FedEx, CNS wholesalers, a technology company, and several other commercial entities. And it actually led to the future development of an additional corporate park north of the property, completely developed on its own by another private developer, not with any city investment at all. So it just again shows how a initial investment in a certain area led to some spin-off and some sort of a momentum of economic development in that part of New Hampshire. Concord just recently did a project. They had a 40-acre site with contaminated soils and some old buildings at the intersection of I-93 and I-393. Again, the city's master plan identified the need for a first-class hotel and conference center. I don't think a Marriott Courtyard's a first-class hotel, but I guess
It is a first-class hotel.
It's closer than the old lumberyard.
Okay, so again, this was done in concert with the city's master plan, and it wasn't done in a vacuum. It was done to sort of meet an objective that the city had on the books and wanted to see come to fruition. Again, the city acquired land to agree to finance public improvements to make the property more marketable. Private developer is not going to go in and start, digging around and kicking soil and find out there's arsenic and, TCBs and all these other adjectives that start getting you nervous. And it's like, without again having the city maybe taking a first step into that, and then with that, once they partner with the private developer, to build a hotel and a conference facility. Again, it led to additional investment. There was a medical office facility and an elderly housing facility that was built within the district. The city's tax base increased by $40 million. The annual TIF taxes, or the captured value, are more than sufficient to pay the debt service and the bonds. And I think you're all familiar with the facility. It's the corporate center at Horseshoe Pond. It's the Grappone Conference Center, I believe it's called. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but again, I wasn't personally involved, but our Boston office was involved with that financing for the city of Concord. And I think you all can say that it was an improved gateway entrance to the city, and it did eliminate a blighted site.
Vastly improved.
Yeah,
it.
so
I live in Concord. So.
Okay.
Oh, you're a resident, Tim.
The next study, and I don't want to spend a little bit of time on that, but just to give you a little different flavor, this is the one that I'm most familiar with, again, because this is where I live, and this is the commission that I presently serve on. East Providence, Rhode Island, actually east of Providence, coincidentally enough. It's a separate city from Providence, and we're an older city. 19% of our residents are over 65. It's probably older. Obviously, that was based on the 2000 census. We're an older city. We're built out. We have no place left to expand. So we've got some real challenges. And we have a property tax cap in Rhode Island, so we have to find ways to, if we want additional revenue, we need to find additional development. It's as simple as that. The next slide talks about the existing facilities that we have there. It was old industrial, heavy commercial uses, oil and gas storage tanks, wonderful stuff, chemical storage. Back in the 50s, land use regulations were very lax, so you put it over there. That's fine. So right now we're real largely left with some vacant buildings, some unused parcels. There is some extensive environmental contamination, and the infrastructure to the facilities is very limited, and the soil conditions are very poor. So we've developed and again, it's about 300 acres, but it's waterfront property that looks at the city of Providence. So we think there's a huge development opportunity there. The city created a waterfront district plan, which I serve on, it not only does it have tax increment finance